Hi, I'm Louise, and today I'll be ranking the 2026 Best Picture nominees. Honestly, this year's films are all pretty good. There's a little something for everyone, which is fun. We have two horror films, one directed by Guillermo del Toro, and another that's a secret musical, a twist on the classic sports story, a period thriller, three films about familial relationships and how we move forward with them, and of course, a movie about cars racing fast for good measure. For me, last year was a bit of a mixed bag. This is only my second year doing this ranking, and I've got to say, this year was way more fun. I could see any ordering of these films and totally understand why someone would decide to move them around. These are just my personal preference as far as these films go, but I would love to see your rankings of the films, even if you haven't seen them all. I don't think really any of the films are bad, which is not always the case. So I'm really thrilled about this mix of nominees. And there really is just a huge variety here. It's very fun. And I also want to give a small spoiler warning here. I will be discussing the plots of the films. I will warn if there's going to be any major story spoilers. But if you're like me and want to go into these films more or less blind, unless you've already heard about the films. Anyway, I will be talking about the plots and sort of saying what the films are. Yeah, I do think there's something here for everybody among these nominees. So, off to the ranking. At the bottom of my ranking as F1. I don't think this should surprise anybody. This is not a bad film, though. I will say that. I really enjoyed getting to see this in the theater. The stuff they were able to do with those IMAX cameras is amazing. I need to watch more BTS of what was going on with all of the camera setups. It was just very fun technically. Just story-wise, it's sort of lacking. But I guess what can you expect from, a movie like this? Definitely the strong suit here is what they were able to capture on these cameras. Just being able to put the cameras in the cars, on the outside of the cars while they're going super fast. It's amazing. I also should say I know next to nothing about F1, or I guess I did before I saw the film, so that might make a difference in your enjoyment. I don't know if it would make it more or less enjoyable. I've heard that some of the rules they break in this film are kind of crazy, so I wouldn't know. But it was definitely exciting, that's for sure. The film is about an F1 racing driver who returns to racing after 30 years to assist his friend's team that isn't performing well, which is like a pretty basic plot for a sports film, but what really shines here is the racing sequences. So, I mean, if that's your sort of thing, you'll definitely have a good time with this one. I will say this film was the biggest surprise out of the nominees. I kept seeing people talk about it in their lists of what they were guessing was going to be in the Best Picture nominees, and I was like, really? Where is this coming from? And so when they announced the nominees, I was definitely the most surprised by this one. You guys were right! What the heck? What the heck? I saw this on people's list and I was like, you guys are crazy. What are you thinking? But now that I've had some time to think about it, I think it makes more sense. It's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed Top Gun Maverick, and that got a lot of awards buzz when it released. Oscar voters really do like picking familiar faces, so maybe they were just like, oh, he's sort of doing something similar here. Let's throw him in. I really love Top Gun Maverick. This is not that. F1 is not Top Gun Maverick. That movie is so unique and just how great of a spectacle it is. It has the great story, it has the great characters. This is not as good as that is. So I was kind of surprised seeing it in this list, but on a technical level, it achieves similar things, I guess, where you're seeing cameras capture things in ways that have never been done before. So maybe that's part of it. But all in all, the film is like fine. It's really fun on a spectacle level, but story-wise it's just okay. I wonder how it plays at home. If anybody's seen it since it's released on Apple TV, like, I would love to know what your experience was like, because I've seen it in the theater and it was great in the theater, but I wonder if it would be as fun to watch on a screen at home, and maybe it loses some of its excitement. on a smaller screen, but I don't know. I don't know. I would love to hear what you think. I do want to mention, though, I loved the soundtrack for this film. I listened to it a lot last summer right after I saw the film, and I really, really loved it. It's just fun. It has this fun sort of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's a Hans Zimmer score. Generally, those are pretty good, but this one was especially fun, so I really enjoyed that. I also think it's funny that sort of the cultural impact this movie has had is that meme of Javier Bardem and others. I don't remember who else is there. Anyway, celebrating with all the fireworks behind them and everything. That always makes me laugh. So I love that. But yeah, all in all, it's just sort of your average underdog story. There's not a lot of surprises here. It just looks really cool. Next on my ranking is Frankenstein. The rest of these films, I think, are all really great. These are just sort of small preferences from here on out. Not that F1 was like terrible or anything, but I think it was just okay. The rest of these are really fantastic. So I don't want people to think I didn't like Frankenstein because it's here, but I just like the other films more. So anyway, it did land at number 6 on my Guillermo del Toro ranking. So it's not, anyway, it's just the films this year are just really amazing. But yeah, I mean, I like this. I like Guillermo del Toro's work. He does interesting things. You know, it's an adaptation of the book. It splits the story between Frankenstein and the creature, which I actually really love that they did that. I feel like it was like electric when I was watching the film, and we finish the first part and it's like part 2, the creature. I just like was like, I've never been so excited by a title card. So I really love that movie. I also loved that they were able to actually bookend it the way the book does with all the stuff in the North Pole. I remember when I read the book back in college, I think, I was like, why has no one put that in a movie? Like, that's a really cool setting. So I'm glad that that exists now. But yeah, the film is just beautiful. I think the fact that it's winning a bunch of production design awards, or at least it did at the BAFTAs, makes a lot of sense to me, because that's usually what Guillermo del Toro's strong suit is being able to do fantastic production design, and this film is no different. The costumes. Oh my gosh, I would not be mad if this film won costumes, for sure. There's just some incredible work being done here. I think the reason that this is lower on the list is because I just, for some reason, had a hard time with Victor's part of the story. I don't know. It's not like I don't like unlikable characters. He just was, I don't know. The part about his childhood I was so uninterested in, and I could tell they were going for a sort of Barry Lyndon-esque sort of thing, and it doesn't work as well here. And I thought that when I was watching the film, and then Letterboxd will sometimes post like, oh, this film was inspired by these 6 films, and Barry Lyndon was on the list for Frankenstein, so I was not wrong in thinking like, this kind of feels like Barry Lyndon a little bit. So it wasn't just me. It was clearly intentional, but anyway, it just didn't work as well. I will say the second half with the creature was just amazing. Jacob Elordi is fantastic, and I love that he's getting nominated for things. It seems very well deserved to me. And something I struggled with too was the ending. And not to say that, anyway, I don't want to spoil it, so I'll be talking about this super vaguely, but I just didn't quite follow the emotional journey it took to get there. And so I was like, I don't know if I believe this emotionally. You know, like, I can see that it is literally happening on the screen. But emotionally, I was like, I don't know if I'm reaching the same conclusion here based on the rest of the film. I don't know. It felt to me like it sort of came out of nowhere. And so I left feeling sort of unsatisfied. But I did really love Jacob Elordi's performance and all the stuff that he was doing. I just was like, now that we're here at the end, I'm kind of like, I feel like Pinocchio sort of does this emotional bit better. I mean, it's saying something different, but you still have like the, I guess, spoiler warning for both of these films really quick. The son who is invincible. And they sort of reach different conclusions here, right? Because Pinocchio is a children's film, and Frankenstein is definitely not. But I think it's really funny that they're sort of similar and like they're about having a relationship with your father. I just feel like Frankenstein doesn't quite. I wasn't as on board with it. I just was like, I can see what we're doing here, but I am not following. So anyway, that might just be a me problem. I would probably enjoy it on a rewatch. So yeah, I just didn't quite follow that emotionally. Next on my ranking is Bugonia. I feel like this is sort of an oddball in these films. It's really small in scale. It's a really small cast. It takes place mostly in one setting. I guess it really resonated with Academy voters, and maybe they just love Yorgos Lanthimos, but I mean, I liked it, so maybe I just agree with them. I just feel like it feels like sort of an oddball here, but not in a bad way. I mean, it was good. Bugonia is a remake of a South Korean film called Save the Green Planet. This film is about two men who kidnap a CEO on suspicion that she is actually an alien who wants to destroy the Earth. And it's sort of a wild premise that goes in all these crazy directions, but it allows for the performers to just sort of do great performances. You know, this could have been a play. I feel like you could make a Bugonia play because it's not, I don't know, it's a lot of people sitting and talking in like the same space. I don't know who would want to make the Bugonia play, but I would go see it if someone made it. Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons especially, I mean, they are two leads, right? They're both fantastic. As always, I think both of them are always giving great performances, so that's not a surprise, but this was definitely, I don't know, some of the better performances of the year to me. I wish Jesse Plemons was getting more attention for his fantastic performance, but, you know, sometimes that's just how it goes. I do really want to talk about the ending because my enjoyment of this film is so dependent on the ending, so I'm going to put a spoiler warning here. Skip to here if you want to not know the ending. And I'm like talking about the last like 5 minutes of the film here, so if you don't want to know the ending, please skip this. Like, if you have any inkling of wanting to watch this film and you haven't yet, just like, I would recommend just go watch it and come back and we could talk. So, now that we're talking about the ending, I know it was controversial. It feels like for some people it really worked, some people it didn't. I love that about it. When I saw this film, I had literally just finished reading the book Careless People, A Cautionary Tale of Power, Greed, and Less Idealism. It's a nonfiction book that's written by Sarah Wynne Williams about her experience working at Facebook. And so I sort of had, you know, the Silicon Valley mindset on my brain. I was so baffled by that book. Like, none of it was a huge surprise because you hear that sort of thing all the time. But hearing it from like a firsthand account is a whole different thing. And so I was already thinking about that week, especially when we're being introduced to Michelle, the CEO, and she's sort of explaining like, we want people to feel like they can leave when they're supposed to leave work, but we also want them to finish their work. And she's like trying to navigate it in such this weird way where she's like, oh, we expect people to get their work done, but also they should feel free to leave when their work is done at 5:30, if it's done at 5:30, but stay if it's not done. And sort of this like sort of whirlpool of like trying to explain this concept that really just doesn't make sense. Anyway, that scene is so funny. I was dying laughing because I was like, I feel like I just read this in book form and that was real life. So anyway, that was really funny. And then like when we get to the end of the film and we find out that yes, she is indeed actually an alien, like in my mind, I'm like, are billionaires really that different from an alien? Really? Like in my head, I was like, when I got to the ending, and because at that point, I did not think that she was an alien. Like until she hopped out of the emergency vehicle, I was fully believing that this was just a wealthy woman. I never was like thinking she was going to be an alien. I don't know. But we get to the end and I was like, I guess it doesn't really matter if she was an alien or not. she was still a billionaire and so out of touch with what average people are working with and like living like, that her being alien or not being an alien doesn't really matter. Like they're basically the same thing. And both wouldn't care if billions of people died if they were still able to, get all their money and power and whatever. So anyway, I was like, that's sort of what I took away from the film. Just like, yeah, her being an alien, she could have also been a billionaire and it would have been the same, like, anyway, the ending of them like killing everybody and all those shots of everybody like in the middle of doing stuff, that really stuck with me for a while. So I could see why they ended up going with the alien ending. But like for me, I was like emotionally, or I guess for me logically, it would have been like her being an alien is not, I don't know, her relationship to the people around her doesn't really change if she's an alien or not. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Bugonia. I really need to watch more of Yorgos Lanthimos' work. I've only seen this in Poor Things, which I loved Poor Things, like more than this film. I loved Poor Things. So I really should watch more of his stuff. Next on my ranking is Train Dreams. And what a beautiful film. I love films that have beautiful cinematography, obviously. But I love how much this film allows you to sit and just sort of enjoy the beautiful images. I feel like a lot of times in films, you'll just get like a second of something beautiful. And like, that's great. I love seeing beautiful things, but getting to just sort of bask in that moment of just beauty and just get to enjoy being in there was so pleasant. I love movies like this for that reason, where you're just sort of basking in, whatever's going on. I really love that about this film. It's very slow, but not boring. If that makes sense. Like it was a nice ponderous slowness, not like a there's nothing going on slowness. Train Dreams is an American drama film that covers the life of Robert Grenier based on the 2011 novella by Dennis Johnson. The film sort of jumps through Grenier's work on the Spokane International Railway in the 1910s, his meeting his wife and building a life with her, and through other big events of his life. I don't really want to go into too much detail on the plot details here because I went in basically blind to this movie, and I think that really helped my enjoyment. And it just feels like very gentle considering like what literally happens in this movie. Because you could take these events and make it very like shocking and in your face and like, but this was so much more, I don't know, it dwelled on the important moments, but not in a way that was like shocking. Because so many movies are like, I want to shock you. But like this has sort of terrible and heartbreaking things happen, but it's in a way that just allows you to sit with it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. The pacing is just slow, but not in a way that's boring. It's especially funny because I saw this the day after I watched Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, which is like so the opposite of this movie in terms of pace. So it was a nice contrast. Maybe it's a good double feature. I don't know, because they're so different from each other. But yeah, I love films that give you the time to think about what's going on, and it's really just so beautiful. Joel Edgerton is really great here. I wish he was getting more attention awards-wise, but like, he's really giving a very subtle performance here, which doesn't always get recognized, but alas. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. And before I saw this, someone said that it feels like a poem, which I think I would agree with. I think it's very just ponderous, but in a way that, I don't know, feels genuine. Because sometimes you can see that and it feels very like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. But it really works for this film. Next on my ranking is Marty Supreme. I do have a full review of this if you want to see all my thoughts on this film. But overall, I did like it. It did stress me out like crazy, but the ending was so good. I feel like it was worth it. Marty Supreme is about a young man in the 1950s who wants to become the greatest table tennis star, but is struggling to find the funds to make these dreams happen. So he's trying to make money however he can. Timothée Chalamet is fantastic, as always. He's always great. I guess he really did play table tennis and practice it for a long time. I mean, it looks convincing, so that makes sense. I think my favorite performance of his is still in Dune Part 2, but that's not the sort of movie that gets you awards, so maybe it's his time. I don't know. I enjoyed that this was sort of a twist on the sports movie where you have like an underdog, but he's just sort of his biggest enemy here. Because he's like genuinely talented and it's not about his talent at all. Like there's never a question that he's good. It's more about like what it takes to get there if you don't already have the funds and the support to do it. Which I think is an interesting take on sports in general. Just because there's so many people who would be amazing at sports, but they don't have the money, they don't have the time, they don't have the support from their parents. You know, if they're a kid, obviously. And that's definitely the case here. He doesn't really have any support. Not only that, he's just kind of a jerk to everybody, which sort of makes his life harder. He sort of does that to himself. Yeah, and because he's his biggest advocate, he, you know, when he says things that are out of line, and he does say some really wild stuff, then it totally backfires on him. But if he had had that support, maybe it would have ended differently. So I don't know. I think easily the best parts of the film are the table tennis sequences. I love the music. I listen to that soundtrack all the time. This and the Sinners soundtrack were probably my most listened to soundtracks of last year. I just really loved the energy. I like how much, because you think 1950s and you think of a certain soundscape of music that you would be hearing, and it's not what you're hearing in this film. It's very 80s sounding. Like, I wouldn't have made that choice, but not because I don't think it's a good one. It's just because I wouldn't have thought of it, and I really loved it, and I think it works really well here. Oh, and the ending. Oh my gosh. I really love that ending. It's so perfect for this movie. It sort of wraps things up in such a great way. Yeah, that final match is just really, it's well written, it's well edited, it's well acted. It's just everybody's doing amazing work there. It's all fantastic. Love that ending. Next on my ranking is The Secret Agent. It's not very often that I see a film that I feel like is so specifically catered to me, and this was definitely one of those. I love sharks. I didn't know there was a shark in this movie. I love music from the 1970s, from all over. So there's a lot of great 1970s movies, and I love political thrillers. So the fact that like all three of these things are in this movie speak a lot to me as a viewer. So yeah, it made it very easy for me to like. The Secret Agent is a historical political thriller film set during the Brazilian military dictatorship in the 1970s. Wagner Moura plays Armando, a professor who is attempting to flee persecution during the authoritarian regime. I loved Wagner Moura's performance. Another subtle performance, and I'm glad that he's getting the attention. He could totally win. That would be amazing. He would be my pick for Best Actor, I think. He is just doing so much here. It's so subtle, his like frustration and anger at the situation, but he doesn't ever have the like outburst moment typical of that sort of performance that I recall. I love the cars in this movie. I'm not a car person, but they're also beautiful. I love how the film starts off and he's in this beautiful yellow Beetle, I think. Anyway, I love that opening scene. I was like, okay, I see what this is. I get the tone. Let's go. I'm on board. And the film just like flew by. Sometimes I'll be watching a film and I'll be like, okay, this part is kind of boring, but then it'll get interesting. I was just ready to go the whole movie. I was super interested in what was going on. I was fully invested. I loved it. There's also a principal shark that gets discovered with a leg in it. And this is really important to the story, but I was just losing my mind that there was a shark in this movie. I love sharks, and if I had known there was a shark in this film, I would have watched it ages ago. And there's... Oh my gosh, I just remembered that. A quick spoiler warning here. Skip to here if you want to skip this. But that whole scene with the leg in the park, I have not been so like oh my gosh, that scene is so funny. I was so like thrown off by that, and it's so funny because there's no other scene like that in the film. Like the rest of it is played super serious and like very, I mean, it's serious and funny, but this takes it to an absurd level that like never happens again. Like when the movie was over, I turned to my friends I watched it with and I was like, so what was the leg about? Like, anyway, I loved it though. I'm not gonna lie, it was very funny. I was laughing so hard. After I recorded my video, I saw an interview where Guillermo del Toro is interviewing the writer and director of The Secret Agent. He shares why he included the hairy leg. And I guess it was code for, like, they used it in that time because of censorship and they were trying to report on what was going on, but they sort of used the hairy leg as sort of a code. I thought that was interesting. And it's also like played for laughs in the film, obviously. So it is meant to be sort of ridiculous, but I found that interesting that it wasn't just for laughs, even though it was also for that. But yeah, I love this movie. I think it was just everything I wanted. And it's shot really well. There's some really fun split diopter shots. I know everybody talks about those. They're really flashy. But there's that one, you know, close to the end where you're like, oh, this is so... Anyway, it was so good. It was shot really well. I love the color grading. I feel like so many movies now are just so not colorful for some reason. They're like, no, we need to be realistic about our coloring here. But like the colors were just really beautiful. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the production design and the, you know, deciding what colors they want on screen and then the colorist sort of enhancing them. But yeah, I loved the way it looked. It was fun. I laughed a lot. It was also, you know, intense. I just love that sort of film. Next on my ranking is Hamnet, which shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody who knows me. I love Chloe Zhao. I love Shakespeare. I love witchy stuff. It's just very me also, in a different way from The Secret Agent, I suppose. The only other thing I think I've seen Jessie Buckley in is Chernobyl, like before this film. That's one of my favorite TV shows of all time, so that boded well also. And she's so good in this. I would not be mad if she won Best Actress at all. This is not a subtle performance, that is for sure, but it's really just amazing to watch. She's really incredible. And I think a huge reason why this film works at all is because we're able to follow her emotionally through the entire film. She's just, yeah, she's amazing. She does an incredible job. And she's not the only really fantastic performance. I also was really impressed by Jacob E. Jupe, who was Hamnet. Whoa. Just like an incredible performance from this young man. Like, and his sister, I don't think is getting enough credit. The girl who plays his sister, Olivia Lyons, also fantastic. Their scenes together are amazing. And he's great by himself too, obviously. He gets a lot more opportunity to shine. But they really just like, they feel like kids. Because a lot of kids in movies, like, I just watched The Ring. And the kid in this film is so like, it's funny how serious he is. And I think part of it is they're trying to do the like creepy kid thing. Anyway, I don't know why my immediate thing is to talk about The Ring, but sometimes kids just act like creepy adults, basically, where they're like, you should know that because you're a kid or whatever. Like these kids felt like kids and their thinking felt like kids and they acted like kids, but they were, you know, obviously acting. So anyway. There's a lot of layers to that, and I think Chloe Zhao is to be commended for her directing, because working with kids is really hard. I'm going to talk about the ending, so skip to here if you don't want to see the ending, but it's in the trailer, so like, Maybe it doesn't matter. Anyway, I have heard people talk about the ending as emotionally manipulative, which I think is funny because isn't that what movies do? That's just the thing. That's just what movies are. And maybe it didn't work for you, and that's okay. Not everything works for everybody, but it really worked for me. Partially because I got to do a summer in London where I was, studying film and going to plays and whatever for school. And one of the shows we got to see was Hamlet at the Globe. And I love Hamlet. And so I was like, we're going to be the first ones in line and I'm going to be right front and center because mostly this was for practical reasons. So we could lean on the stage, because we had been to another show like the week or two before. And I was like, just standing is so hard. But if I have something to lean on, it'll be easier. So it was practical, but also, it was fun to be at the front. And so in the version we saw, Hamlet was played by a woman, which was fun. And when she gave the to be or not to be speech, she sits down and is like eye level with me. And right in front of me, she was like locked in. We were looking at each other. Holy moly. Probably the most impactful moment on stage I've ever experienced, because she was looking at me and delivering this soliloquy to me. It was just so amazing. And so this is definitely a different emotion, obviously, but I totally believe in the magic of theater, right? I was a little bit of a theater kid. But, live theater is just really amazing. And being able to capture that on screen, I think it's really hard because it's not live in real, when you're watching a film, obviously it's filmed, it's been through editing, it's been through coloring, there's been music added. There's all these layers that sort of take away from the liveness of it. But for me, it really captured that feeling of you're watching something special and you're witnessing it with all these people with you. Why it may not work for everyone, but I'm glad it exists. Sometimes you'll see something and you're like, yeah, that was made for me specifically. And this was one of those times for me. Next on my ranking is Sentimental Value. What a lovely film. When I saw the film, I came home and I made myself a cup of tea and I wrote a bit. It's cozy in a way that having a good cathartic cry with someone you feel safe with is cozy. When you're sharing something really sweet with your friend or whatever. Anyway, that's what this felt like to me. And I really loved it for that reason. Sentimental Value is a family drama that is mostly in Norwegian and English about a filmmaker father who re-enters his daughter's lives after their mother's passing with a script in hand that he's desperate for his daughters to read. I think this cast is all amazing. There's not a weak link here. Everybody's really great. And I love that each of our 4 leads got nominated for Oscars. It was very well deserved and makes a lot of sense to me. I do think it's funny that they got 4 acting nominations, which is more than any other film this year, but didn't get a casting nomination because maybe it's not considered an ensemble film. I don't know. I think the casting award is interesting in that I don't think people really know what it is yet, because you're awarding the casting director, right? So it's based on who do you think picked the best people? And I don't know if people know, because I could see people awarding it and being like, oh, this is a great ensemble film. We won't award. I could see it becoming this way, where they're like, well, since this is an ensemble film, we need to award it somehow, but not an individual performer. Ensemble films have a harder time making it into the acting categories because there's so many people. I don't know why this always happens. So I'm wondering that as the years go on, if the best casting will sort of become the best ensemble award, which it is not, because it gets awarded to the best casting, to the casting director. That's who wins the award. And it's crazy that the awards are almost 100 years old and we're now just getting this award because casting is huge, right? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The writing is super smart in this movie. Not just in the way that like the daughters and father communicate, but it was fun to see Stellan Skarsgård directing. I feel like when we see directors on film, it's usually like they're these big personalities and they're really bad at it. Because like directing is so much about like being there for your actors and sort of sitting with them and making them feel like they're sharing in your vision. And I think it's fun to see him do that with Elle Fanning and sort of him trying to work with this actress that isn't getting it. And so he's like working with her, trying to ask her questions. I love how he like never really answers her questions. He's just like, so what do you think? Which honestly, I think is part of his character, and he just doesn't want to like commit to anything. But also, I think that's genuinely a good way to sort of gauge where your actor is at. Anyway, it's multi-layered. Again, really smart. And so, yeah, it makes sense why he's so desperate for his daughters to read the script, because he has a hard time communicating directly with people. And maybe that's just because that's how he's been directing and that's been like his life for a while. I'm not sure, but anyway, it really, really works, and works on like a meta level of like, yeah, this is how his relationships with his daughters are. Anyway, I just really love that. A quick spoiler warning for the ending here. Jump to here if you would like to skip the spoilery discussion. I love the scene where Agnes brings Nora the script, and Nora finally reads it, and they have this catharsis together, and their father is not witness to any of it. He doesn't get to be there. He doesn't get to witness this moment of his daughters sort of coming closer and working through some things that they've been, chewing on for years, because I don't think it would have worked if he was there. I mean, obviously, I don't think they would have been, there's that sort of build up, right, where you have a hard time with somebody, and so you wouldn't ever really be honest with them, and you're more prone to being combative because of your experiences with them previously, right? And so that wouldn't have happened because of that reason. But also, I love that he just didn't get to be a part of that, because he doesn't really apologize. And so they get to have this amazing experience together, and he's just not privy to it. I mean, he sees the consequences of that, but he doesn't get to be on that journey. And I think that's perfect. That's exactly how the film should end. It was just a perfect ending. And I just really love this movie. I think in another year, it could have totally won Best Picture. But alas, we have our next two films to talk about that are our biggest contenders for Best Picture, which is kind of amazing that they're also my two favorites. So that's really fun. Next on my ranking is One Battle After Another. This movie is so good. On a technical level, everything just works perfectly. It is so just well executed by everybody involved. All the technicians, all the actors, the directing, the editing, it's just amazing. And even though it's almost 3 hours, it feels like it's exactly as long as it needs to be, which as an editor feels like the highest compliment I can give a movie like this. It's already amazing, but it's just edited really well. One Battle After Another is the story of an ex-revolutionary who goes into hiding with his daughter and is forced out of hiding as he and his daughter are pursued by a military officer from his past. Everyone in this movie is good. Like, you'll often get like a couple amazing performances, but everyone is allowed to shine here, even if they're not on screen for very long. And usually I will just highlight a performance or two when I'm talking about the film, the ones that get to shine the most. But everybody is great. Leonardo DiCaprio gets to be a fumbling father. He is so funny in this movie. I would love to see more stuff like this from him because he's really good. Being funny is really hard. And I mean, part of that is due to the writing, obviously, but part of that is his performance. If you can't deliver a joke well, it's not going to work. Sean Penn is hilarious, but horrifying. Like, he's also funny, but really scary. The way he walks. Can we talk about the way he walks? It works so well, though, but it made me laugh any time I saw him. And quick spoiler warning here. When he's, like, walking down the hill at the end, I'm like, oh, I know exactly who that is. Not because of, like, the situation even. You just immediately recognize his gait, and you're like, oh, there he is. He survived. He sort of walks like Lego men walk in, like, video games and stuff. Benicio del Toro is also fantastic. He, the way he delivers the line, "a few small beers," is, of course, iconic. But he also has this, like, calmness and just, like, confidence that doesn't come off as, like, abrasive or rude, but just is calm and feels so different from, like, everybody else in the film. He's just very, like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and everything's gonna be okay. We'll figure it out, you know? It's very roll with the punches, and Benicio del Toro does an amazing job. And Teyana Taylor, of course, is amazing. She sort of leaves this huge mark on the rest of the film, and if it was played differently, I think it'd feel fake, you know, because you're like, the movie will tell you what to think about something, and then you see it and you're like, they hyped that up way too much. No, this is not the case. Her impact on the rest of the film isn't even just, like, them talking about her and her decision leaving an impact, but just, like, her presence is always there, even when she's not on screen, because of the way that she is performed. So, anyway, great work there. And Chase Infinity, also fantastic. I can imagine this being your first film and having to, like, co-lead with Leonardo DiCaprio. And she really holds her own. She's really amazing. Like, yeah, she's fantastic. She just nails it. She's so good. And the camera, oh my gosh. There's so many great shots in here. But of course, you know, everybody talks about the hills part. But that's for a reason. It's really unique looking. And I got to watch, there's this amazing breakdown by the cinematographer, Michael Bauman, the cinematographer, where he talks about, like, how they were figuring out what lenses to use. And there's so much thought that goes into a sequence like that, and so much work. And they put these cameras, these, like, really expensive cameras, right on the front of these cars in order to get that sort of rolling feeling. Oh my gosh. And they're having to time, you know, because they want you to see the cars behind Chase Infinity's character. And so they have to time, you know, the ascent up the hills so that you can see them in the rear view mirror. Just stuff like that is so hard. And it's on screen for, like, not very long, but it just adds to the tenseness. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, and this was my first year I watched any of Paul Thomas Anderson's film. I've now seen this, There Will Be Blood, and The Master. I watched There Will Be Blood first. He's really great. I need to watch more of his films. And if this is his year, it seems well deserved to me. This was a really great film. And at number 1 in my ranking is Sinners. Not only is this at the top of this list, this is my favorite film of 2025. It's not very often that my favorite film ends up in the best picture contention, but this year is an exception. And not only is it nominated for Best Picture, it also has a record-breaking 16 nominations. The previous record was 14, so it's like 2 more. Obviously, part of this is the new casting award, but, you know, with everything else, they would have still gotten 15, which is crazy. Sinners is a period vampire movie set in 1932 in Mississippi. Michael B. Jordan plays a set of twins returning to their hometown to start a juke joint for the community they grew up in. I also have an entire video about this film if you want to watch me gush about it for like 30 minutes. So here's sort of the shorter version. When I went to go see this, it was a first opening weekend, and so I didn't know it was a musical. I just knew that it was a vampire film with Michael B. Jordan, and Ryan Coogler was directing it, and I was like, that definitely sounds like something I would like. But I had no idea how much I would love this movie. I love vampire stuff anyway. Like, I grew up watching Twilight. This is not Twilight at all, okay? I'm just saying that I grew up, watching vampire stuff and reading vampire stuff. And it was so fun to see vampires sort of talking, a vampire film talking about the horror of colonialism and how that's basically worse than the vampire thing. Like the vampires are sort of just like also there. There's way more going on other than the vampires, which I love. And just watching like the horror of just being in the South and the 1930s and being a person of color, and then it culminating in the juke joint one take in the middle there. Oh my gosh, that scene is so good. Like, it's flashy, which is fun, but it's also just so well executed. And I mean, just what they were able to do here and sort of talk about these really difficult concepts in a way that was approachable to like mainstream audiences is really difficult to do, and to make it interesting and take this genre that we've seen a million times and make it feel fresh and new by combining it with new things. It takes a great director to make. I love this movie. I cried in my other review. I knew I was gonna cry here. It just really touched me, and I'll be thinking about it for a long, long time. But it's been so fun to see since the film has come out, the cast and crew, and just how much they loved working with Ryan Coogler. Like, just seeing his relationship with everybody. In Hollywood, it's really easy to just do the job and have it be really intense and stressful, because working on movies is really hard. But just to see how much they loved working with him, and you can feel it in the film itself. It's just made with love. And I hope that all of these people, the actors, the technicians, everybody gets to do whatever they want. And if that's just working with Ryan Coogler for the rest of their lives, I would totally understand that. So anyway, I love this movie. And I love that other people love it too. So that's my ranking. I love movies, man. What else is there to say? I don't know. They're just, there's always so many people doing great work. But yeah, 2025 was a great year for me, film-wise. I mean, Sinners was just... What is there to say? Yeah, I knew I was gonna cry. I just love Sinners. I hope this was fun to watch. I love talking about movies, obviously. I'm just really grateful for movies. And the Oscars, obviously, are not always great at highlighting what's really the best, and everybody, loves different things. But that's what's fun about film, right? There's something for everybody. And you don't have to like all the same films as me, and that's fine. It's really fun to... Like last year, when I started this, I was like, oh, it's going to be such a chore to watch some of these. And it was. This year, none of the films were that way. They were all enjoyable. I enjoyed some more than others, obviously, but they were all enjoyable to me. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great 2026. Honestly, all the movies I've seen that have released this year so far have been awesome. And to be fair, I'm pretty choosy. I'm not just going to go see everything. I don't have time for that. But of the things I've chosen, I haven't been disappointed by anything so far. And February and January are generally pretty slow. So I'm happy about that. So hopefully 2026 is another great year for films. So we'll see. And again, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way through this video, thank you. You guys are just amazing. I love getting to talk movies with y'all. So yeah, thank you so much.